Most people don't realize it, but the symptoms they struggle with every single day: fatigue, stubborn weight gain, breakouts, bloating, joint stiffness, brain fog are not random. They are warnings, signals that chronic inflammation is simmering beneath the surface. And in my clinical experience, one of the most common causes of that inflammation comes down to just 3 everyday foods. 3 foods that most people eat daily, often believing they are harmless, sometimes even healthy. Yet they are silently damaging the gut lining, disrupting immunity, derailing hormone balance, and accelerating aging from the inside out. When my patients remove these foods, the change is extraordinary. Skin becomes clearer because inflammation settles. Energy rises because mitochondria are no longer fighting a biochemical war. The gut starts repairing because the constant irritation finally stops. Mental clarity returns because the immune system is no longer overreacting. And metabolism begins functioning normally again because the body is no longer inflamed and stressed. This is root cause medicine. When inflammation drops, the body can finally get on with the business of healing. And what most people don't realize is how rapidly this happens. Within days, bloating reduces. Within a week, energy becomes more stable. Within 2 weeks, skin looks brighter and cravings weaken. Once you remove the driving forces of inflammation, the body shifts out of survival mode and into repair mode. Today, I want to show you exactly what these 3 foods are, why they trigger inflammation in the first place, and what happens in the body when you take them out. This is not about dieting, restriction, or willpower. It's about removing the daily irritants that are overwhelming your gut, immune system, and mitochondria, and allowing your biology to work the way it is designed to work. Chronic inflammation almost always begins in the gut, even if the symptoms appear on your face, your energy levels, your joints, or your mood. The gut is the front line of the immune system, and when that front line becomes damaged, the entire body pays the price. From a clinical perspective, what I see repeatedly is that patients come in with skin issues, stubborn fatigue, uncontrollable cravings, weight that simply will not shift, and they have no idea that the source of all this is inflammation being generated inside the digestive tract. And the tragedy is that they live with these symptoms for years, believing it is age, genetics, or bad luck, when in reality it is simply the body responding to irritants it was never designed to deal with on a daily basis. When the gut lining becomes irritated by inflammatory foods, it triggers a breakdown of the tight junctions that normally keep the gut barrier secure. Once those gaps open, particles that should remain inside the gut leak into the bloodstream. This is what we call leaky gut, but clinically it is immune activation at the wrong place and wrong time. The immune system senses these leaked particles as foreign because they are not meant to be circulating. And when the immune system is activated daily, the inflammatory cascade begins. The body shifts into a constant state of fighting, using precious nutrients, antioxidants, and energy to deal with this unnecessary alarm. This is where mitochondrial stress appears. Mitochondria, the tiny power stations inside every cell, must divert their resources away from energy production and toward managing inflammation. Patients describe it as fatigue, burnout, lack of motivation, afternoon crashes. They think it's willpower. It's not. It's simply mitochondrial overload. When mitochondria cannot produce energy efficiently, the body slows down metabolism as a protective response. This is why people gain weight even when eating less. This is why cravings intensify, because the body is desperately trying to find quick, easy energy. And this is why mood becomes unstable. The brain is exceptionally sensitive to inflammatory signals. One of the earliest signs of gut-driven inflammation is skin issues. The skin is an extension of the gut. When the immune system is overwhelmed, it expresses itself in the skin: acne, eczema, rosacea, dryness, premature aging. These are not cosmetic problems. They are early warnings that the gut barrier has been compromised. Patients often spend years trying creams, cleansers, antibiotics, and treatments, yet nothing changes until the inflammatory foods are removed. Once the irritants are gone, the immune system finally gets a break. And when the immune system calms, the skin calms, the inflammatory cascade itself is simple. Irritants damage the gut leaks, the immune system overreacts, inflammation circulates, mitochondria weaken. Hormones become imbalanced, metabolism slows, symptoms multiply, but the moment you remove the triggers, the cascade begins reversing. I see it every week in clinic. Within hours of eliminating the offending foods, the gut lining stops being assaulted. The immune system becomes quieter because fewer foreign particles are leaking through, inflammation markers begin falling, cortisol, the stress hormone, becomes more balanced, blood sugar becomes more stable. Mitochondria begin to produce energy more efficiently because they are no longer under attack. It is remarkable how quickly the body shifts back into healing mode when the burden is removed within the first 24 hours. Bloating often reduces because the gut muscles stop reacting defensively. Gas settles, digestion becomes smoother, and hydration improves at the cellular level. Within the first 48 hours, energy begins to stabilize. Patients feel fewer crashes, fewer cravings, less fogginess. This is the mitochondria coming back online. Within 3 to 5 days, the skin often looks less inflamed, less puffy, and more vibrant. This is simply the immune system calming down now that it is not being triggered constantly. Within the first week, people often say they feel lighter, not because they have lost weight, but because inflammation is dropping and the body is no longer fighting internally. The body is extraordinarily good at healing when we stop harming it. This is why removing just 3 inflammatory foods can trigger such rapid transformation. You are allowing the gut lining to repair itself, allowing the immune system to switch off unnecessary alarms, allowing the mitochondria to focus on energy production, and allowing the entire metabolic system to function the way it is designed to function. The first food I ask patients to remove, the food that repeatedly shows up as the single biggest driver of gut irritation, inflammation, and premature aging, is refined sugar in all its modern forms. Not because sugar is evil, but because the human body was never designed to handle the levels we now consume. In clinical practice, sugar is one of the fastest ways to damage the gut lining, overwhelm the immune system, impair mitochondrial function, and accelerate aging from the inside out. Most people think they have a sweet tooth. What they actually have is chronic immune irritation and unstable blood sugar caused by hidden sugars they are consuming daily without realizing it when sugar reaches the gut. It feeds inflammatory microbes and destabilizes the healthy bacteria that protect the gut barrier. The gut lining is only 1 cell thick, and it is incredibly delicate. Sugar weakens the tight junctions that keep that barrier sealed. Over time, this irritation creates microscopic openings that allow particles to leak into the bloodstream. This is where immune activation begins. Every time sugar causes the gut to become more permeable, these leaked particles activate the immune system as if the body is under attack. This constant immune stimulation is what drives low-grade inflammation. And low-grade inflammation is the foundation of almost every chronic symptom my patients experience. Sugar also drives insulin spikes. Insulin is not a bad hormone, it is essential, but when it is triggered repeatedly throughout the day, the body becomes metabolically unstable. High insulin locks fat inside cells, slows metabolic rate, and triggers energy crashes that push people to eat more sugar to pick themselves up again. This roller coaster is exhausting for the mitochondria. Mitochondria want steady fuel. Sugar gives them chaos. With every spike, mitochondria are forced to switch from clean, burning energy production to inflammation-driven firefighting. Over time, this weakens them, reduces ATP output, and contributes to fatigue, brain fog, cravings, and poor concentration. Another problem is that high sugar intake accelerates cellular aging through a process called glycation. Glycation occurs when sugar molecules bind to proteins, making them stiff, fragile, and dysfunctional. This is one of the fastest ways to age the skin because glycation damages collagen and elastin, the proteins that keep skin firm and youthful. Collagen becomes brittle, fine lines appear earlier, skin loses elasticity, and inflammation rises across the body. Many people blame aging, when in reality, their skin is being damaged by sugar long before the mirror shows signs of it. Sugar also disrupts hormonal balance. Insulin spikes interfere with cortisol, the stress hormone, and create imbalances in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Women experience heavier periods, PMS breakouts, and mid-cycle crashes. Men see reduced motivation, lower energy, and declining metabolic resilience. These changes are not random. They are biochemical patterns driven by chronic inflammation and blood sugar instability. Once sugar is removed, hormones often stabilize far more quickly than people expect. The biggest challenge is that sugar hides everywhere. Most people think they consume moderate sugar simply because they don't eat sweets, but sugar is added to sauces, dressings, breads, cereals, plant milks, soups, yogurts, snacks, energy bars, protein powders, and drinks marketed as healthy. In my clinic, I often find patients consuming 10 to 15 teaspoons of hidden sugar a day without ever tasting sweetness. This constant exposure keeps the gut inflamed, keeps the immune system switched on, keeps mitochondria suppressed, and keeps the skin under oxidative stress. Symptoms of sugar-driven inflammation are incredibly common. Bloating after meals, afternoon fatigue, cravings for something sweet, acne or breakouts around the chin and jawline, brain fog, irritability when hungry, dark under-eye circles, stubborn belly fat, and difficulty waking up with energy. These are not weaknesses or personality faults. They are biochemical consequences of sugar destabilizing the gut and overwhelming the immune system. Replacing sugar does not have to be complicated. Whole fruits provide natural sweetness plus fiber, which slows sugar absorption and protects the gut lining. Honey in small amounts can be a transitional option, especially when paired with protein or healthy fats. For cooking, cinnamon, vanilla, and citrus zest provide sweetness without triggering insulin spikes, and one of the simplest strategies is to increase protein and healthy fats at breakfast. This stabilizes blood sugar early in the day, reduces cravings, and allows the gut lining to recover. When patients make these adjustments, the change is dramatic. Skin calms, energy rises, cravings disappear, the gut begins sealing, the immune system quiets, and the aging process slows because the body is no longer being driven into inflammation with every meal. The second inflammatory food I ask patients to eliminate is industrial gluten, containing grains, specifically the modern, hybridized forms of wheat found in bread, pasta, pastries, cereals, crackers, processed snacks, and most convenience foods. This is not about ancient grains or naturally occurring gluten. This is about the genetically altered, highly refined, pesticide-treated wheat proteins that the human gut simply does not recognize. In my clinical experience, this food is one of the most common silent drivers of fatigue, bloating, unpredictable digestion, and chronic skin flare-ups. People consume it daily, often several times a day, and never make the connection between their symptoms and the biochemical stress this modern wheat creates inside the gut. The gut microbiome is profoundly affected by these grains. Modern gluten proteins such as gliadin feed the very bacteria that create inflammation, gas, bloating, and immune activation. These bacteria ferment the carbohydrates found in wheat and produce toxic metabolites like aldehydes and alcohols that stress the gut lining and overwhelm the liver's detox pathways. As these harmful microbes flourish, beneficial bacteria decline. And when beneficial bacteria decline, the gut lining loses support, the immune system becomes unstable, and digestion grows increasingly erratic. This is why people feel bloated after eating bread or pasta. It is not fullness, it is microbial fermentation and immune irritation happening simultaneously when the gut is repeatedly exposed to inflammatory wheat proteins. The tight junctions between gut cells begin to loosen. This opens the door to leaky gut, one of the primary triggers of immune overactivation. The immune system launches antibodies to defend against these leaked wheat particles. Every single exposure triggers another immune flare, keeping inflammation constantly elevated. Over time, this immune strain shows up far beyond the gut. It appears as fatigue because mitochondria are forced to deal with inflammatory signals instead of producing clean energy. It appears as brain fog because inflammatory cytokines interfere with neurotransmitter balance. It appears as cravings because blood sugar becomes unstable after wheat. Induced insulin spikes. One of the reasons modern wheat is particularly problematic is its impact on detoxification. The liver is already busy processing chemicals, pollutants, medications, and byproducts of normal metabolism. When the gut becomes inflamed from wheat, it produces additional toxins that the liver must now neutralize. Wheat fermentation produces endotoxins and inflammatory molecules that pass through the weakened gut barrier and enter circulation, adding enormous pressure on the liver. Patients often describe feeling puffy, sluggish, or heavy without understanding that this is simply impaired detoxification caused by gut irritation. Once wheat is removed, the liver rapidly clears the backlog, and the entire detox system becomes more efficient again. Skin issues are one of the clearest external signs of wheat-triggered inflammation. Acne, eczema, rashes around the mouth or cheeks, small bumps on the arms, redness, and increased oil production are all common. When wheat irritates the gut and drives immune activation, inflammatory cytokines circulate through the bloodstream and trigger skin flare-ups. The skin becomes a dumping ground for toxins the liver cannot process quickly enough. Combine this with hormonal fluctuations driven by insulin spikes from wheat-based foods, and you have the perfect storm for breakouts. In clinic, I have seen patients suffering with skin problems for years finally heal when they remove wheat for just 2 to 3 weeks. Mitochondrial function is also heavily affected. Wheat is a rapid absorption carbohydrate that creates a spike and crash cycle. The spike forces the body to produce large amounts of insulin. The crash forces the adrenal glands to release cortisol to stabilize blood sugar. This hormonal roller coaster is exhausting for the mitochondria. Mitochondria thrive on steady fuel. Wheat gives them turbulence. Over time, the mitochondria shift from efficient oxygen-based energy production to less efficient emergency pathways that produce far fewer ATP molecules. The result is deep fatigue, particularly after meals, and a feeling of never being fully refreshed when patients remove modern wheat and gluten containing processed grains. The improvements are often rapid and dramatic. Digestion becomes calmer because harmful bacteria lose their primary food source. Bloating reduces as fermentation slows. Energy increases as mitochondria are no longer overstressed. Skin begins clearing because inflammation decreases and detox pathways become more efficient. Many patients report that within 3 to 5 days they feel lighter and clearer. Within 2 weeks, the gut begins sealing, the immune system steadies, and inflammatory hormones normalize. And within a month, skin tone improves, cravings disappear, and mental clarity returns. Replacing wheat is straightforward. Root vegetables, quinoa, buckwheat, and rice provide stable energy without feeding inflammatory microbes. Seed Based bread, almond flour wraps, and vegetable-based alternatives support gut repair rather than damaging it. When people make these swaps, the gut lining strengthens, the immune system calms, and the body finally moves out of inflammation and back into healing mode. The third food I ask patients to remove is industrial seed oils, the highly processed vegetable oils extracted from soy, corn, canola, sunflower, safflower, cottonseed, and rice bran. These oils are not natural foods. They are manufactured products, heated, pressurized, bleached, deodorized, and chemically treated in ways the human body simply cannot cope with. Clinically, I see these oils driving inflammation more aggressively than almost anything else people consume. They clog metabolic pathways, overwhelm the liver, disrupt hormones, and slow fat burning so dramatically that patients often believe they have a slow metabolism, when in reality they are just inflamed from these oils. The fundamental problem with industrial seed oils is their extremely high omega-6 content, particularly linoleic acid. Omega-6 fats in small amounts are essential, but in modern diets they are consumed in quantities the body was never designed for. Excess omega-6 is unstable. It oxidizes quickly, and oxidized fats are deeply inflammatory. These oxidized fats integrate into cell membranes, making them fragile, inflamed, and dysfunctional. When cell membranes are compromised, every function becomes harder: nutrient transport, detoxification, hormone signaling, energy production, and immune regulation. This is why seed oils create such a widespread biochemical mess across multiple systems, including skin, metabolism, brain, and thyroid. The liver is heavily affected. Seed oils create lipid peroxides, damaged fat molecules that the liver must neutralize. This places an enormous burden on detoxification pathways. The liver becomes clogged, sluggish, and less efficient at processing hormones, toxins, and metabolic waste. Patients describe this as puffiness, fluid retention, fatigue, and a general sense of heaviness in the body. This is not aging. It is simply the liver drowning in oxidized fats. As soon as these oils are removed, the liver begins clearing the backlog, and fluid retention reduces remarkably quickly. Seed oils also disrupt hormones in predictable ways. They interfere with insulin signaling by creating inflammation within the cells that respond to insulin. This increases insulin resistance, leading to higher blood sugar levels, cravings, increased fat storage, and decreased fat burning. Cortisol is also affected. Inflammation from seed oils triggers ongoing stress signals, pushing the adrenals to produce more cortisol. High cortisol blocks thyroid conversion, slows metabolism, and makes weight loss nearly impossible. Patients often blame their thyroid, but the problem began with the inflammation blocking thyroid hormone activation. Once the oils are removed, thyroid function often improves within days because the body can finally convert T4 into active T3 efficiently again. Fat burning slows dramatically when these oils dominate the diet because mitochondria struggle to process damaged fats. Mitochondria want clean, stable fats as fuel. Seed oils provide unstable, oxidized fats that create mitochondrial stress, reduce ATP output, and slow metabolic rate. This reduction in energy production explains why so many people feel exhausted even after eating. It also explains the cravings. When mitochondria cannot produce enough energy, the body sends signals to eat more, particularly sugar and carbohydrates, to compensate for the energy deficit caused by inflamed, unstable fat. Skin is one of the fastest places to show the effects of seed oil damage. Because these oils are unstable, they oxidize under the skin, driving inflammation that appears as acne, eczema, rosacea, redness, puffiness, and premature aging. They weaken collagen, increase water retention, and make the skin appear dull and swollen. Many people try endless skincare products, unaware that the inflammation is being driven from inside by these oils integrated into their cell membranes. When seed oils are removed, skin often improves noticeably within a week. Puffiness declines, redness calms, and the overall tone becomes clearer because the inflammatory burden drops rapidly. Energy also improves quickly once these oils are removed because mitochondria are no longer forced to burn damaged fats. They switch back to cleaner energy pathways, producing ATP efficiently again. Patients often describe mental clarity returning within days. The brain fog lifts because inflammatory molecules decrease and neuronal signaling becomes more stable. Many report better mood, more motivation, and calmer focus simply because the inflammation in the brain is reducing. The improvements from removing seed oils often occur faster than people imagine. Within 48 hours, fluid retention begins dropping. Within 5 days, energy stabilizes and cravings decrease. Within a week, skin looks less inflamed. Within 2 weeks, thyroid symptoms soften, metabolic rate improves, and fat burning becomes easier. This is the body working the way it is meant to work once the biochemical sabotage of industrial seed oils is finally removed. When patients remove these 3 inflammatory foods, sugar, modern wheat, and industrial seed oils, the body begins repairing itself far more quickly than most people expect. The human body is always trying to heal. It is never the lack of ability that blocks recovery. It is the constant assault from foods that damage the gut, inflame the immune system, exhaust the mitochondria, and overwhelm the liver. Once these irritants are removed, the healing timeline is remarkably predictable. The shifts begin within hours, deepen within days, and compound within 2 weeks. What you feel externally mirrors what is happening internally at the biochemical level within the first 24 hours. The gut lining experiences its first break from irritation. Without sugar feeding inflammatory microbes, fermentation slows. Without wheat proteins triggering immune reactions, gut permeability begins tightening. Without seed oils supplying oxidized fats, inflammatory cytokines begin dropping. Patients often feel less bloated within this first day, not because anything dramatic has happened, but because the gut muscles relax once the irritants stop arriving. Immune activation starts calming almost immediately. Every meal containing these foods triggers a surge of antibodies and inflammatory messengers. Removing them reduces this burden instantly. Mitochondria respond quickly too. With fewer inflammatory signals interfering with energy production, ATP output becomes more stable. People describe clearer thinking the very next morning, fewer cravings, and less afternoon sleepiness. The body is shifting from firefighting to repair within 7 days. The changes are deeper and more noticeable. The microbiome begins rebalancing as harmful bacteria that previously thrived on sugar and wheat lose their fuel source. Beneficial bacteria begin increasing, which strengthens the gut lining further. Digestion becomes smoother and far more predictable. Gas and bloating decrease significantly because fermentation reduces. Transit time normalizes. Skin often begins showing improvement at this stage because the immune system is no longer overwhelmed. Redness softens, breakouts reduce, and hydration improves. This is not skincare working. It is inflammation settling. Energy becomes more stable throughout the day as mitochondria regain efficiency. People report waking up easier, needing less caffeine, and experiencing fewer slumps. Blood sugar stabilizes because insulin spikes are no longer happening with every meal. This prevents the roller coaster that drives cravings, irritability, and fatigue. The liver becomes more efficient at detoxification once seed oils are removed. As inflammation decreases, detox pathways clear faster, reducing puffiness and water retention. Hormones also begin shifting. Cortisol becomes more stable. Estrogen and progesterone become more balanced because the liver is no longer overloaded. Thyroid hormones convert more efficiently because inflammation is no longer blocking the process. These changes often surprise people because they assume hormonal balance requires months, when in reality it requires removing the daily inflammatory triggers within 14 days. The improvements are even more substantial and often life-changing. Inflammation markers drop significantly. The gut lining becomes much more intact, meaning fewer particles are leaking into the bloodstream, and the immune system is finally able to rest. This is when the body transitions from repair to renewal. Microbiome diversity increases, producing more short-chain fatty acids that nourish the gut lining and support metabolic health. Mitochondria become stronger, producing cleaner, more efficient energy. People report feeling lighter, clearer, and more mentally sharp. The fog lifts because the brain is no longer being assaulted by inflammatory molecules crossing the blood-brain barrier. Skin becomes brighter and more resilient because collagen breakdown slows and cellular repair increases. Many notice tighter pores, reduced oiliness, fewer breakouts, and a more even tone. This happens because glycation drops dramatically once sugar is removed, allowing collagen to function normally again. Metabolism improves at the 14-day mark. Insulin sensitivity increases, making fat more accessible as fuel. Fat burning becomes easier because cortisol is calmer, blood sugar is stable, and mitochondria are functioning properly. Cravings diminish because the reward pathways in the brain are no longer being hijacked by sugar and insulin spikes. Sleep quality often improves because inflammation affecting the nervous system decreases. Many patients describe deeper sleep, fewer nighttime awakenings, and a calmer mind. The liver continues clearing toxins more efficiently, which further reduces puffiness, improves energy, and enhances hormonal stability. Thyroid performance strengthens as inflammation drops, which supports metabolic rate and temperature regulation. This 14-day shift is not the final stage of healing. It is simply the turning point. After 2 weeks of removing these 3 foods, the body is no longer inflamed, no longer overwhelmed, and no longer fighting daily biochemical battles. It is finally operating the way it is meant to operate, with stable energy, balanced hormones, a calm gut, a sharp mind, and clear, vibrant skin. Begin the morning with hydration and gentle gut support. Start with a glass of warm water with a pinch of high-quality sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. This replenishes electrolytes, stimulates digestion, and supports liver detoxification. Follow this with a small serving of fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, or a probiotic yogurt if tolerated, to nourish beneficial bacteria and calm inflammation. Breakfast should prioritize protein, healthy fats, and low-glycemic vegetables. Examples include eggs with spinach and avocado, or a collagen-rich bone broth with sauteed greens. This combination stabilizes blood sugar, fuels mitochondria efficiently, and provides amino acids necessary for gut lining repair and skin collagen production mid-morning. Maintain hydration with water, herbal teas, or mineral-rich water. Add anti-inflammatory compounds such as ginger, turmeric, or cinnamon in tea or smoothies. Light movement such as stretching or a short walk supports circulation, lymphatic flow, and energy production. Avoid caffeine on an empty stomach to prevent cortisol spikes. A small snack around this time, if needed, should combine protein, healthy fats, and low-sugar fruit, such as a handful of nuts with blueberries, to prevent blood sugar dips and reduce cravings at lunch. Focus on anti-inflammatory vegetables, clean proteins, and healthy fats. Leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, wild-caught fish, or free-range chicken with olive oil or coconut oil create meals that support mitochondrial function, stabilize hormones, and calm the immune system. Incorporate gut-healing nutrients like glutamine, rich bone broth, or a scoop of collagen protein. Chew thoroughly to signal the digestive system and optimize nutrient absorption. Hydration remains essential. Continue sipping water or herbal infusions throughout the meal. Afternoon routines should combine light movement, mindfulness, and hydration. Gentle yoga, a brisk walk, or mobility exercises support circulation and lymphatic draining. Stress management through deep breathing, short meditation, or grounding exercises reduces cortisol, allowing insulin and thyroid hormones to function optimally. Snack options can include raw vegetables with nut butter or a boiled egg with avocado. Avoid processed foods, added sugar, and refined grains to prevent inflammation, insulin spikes, and energy crashes. This is also an ideal time for a short sunlight exposure to support circadian rhythm and vitamin. In D production dinner should be nutrient, dense, anti-inflammatory, and easy to digest. Examples include roasted vegetables with caught salmon, zucchini noodles with olive oil, or lentil and vegetable soups with herbs like rosemary and thyme. Include probiotic foods such as asparagus, leeks, or onions to feed beneficial gut bacteria. Hydration with warm water or herbal teas like chamomile or peppermint supports digestion and prepares the body for rest. Focus on avoiding large meals right before bed to reduce gut stress and optimize overnight repair processes. Evening routines are crucial for skin, energy, and metabolism. Dim lights to support melatonin in production and circadian alignment. Engage in relaxation practices such as gentle stretching, journaling, or reading to calm the nervous system. Consider a magnesium-rich bath or supplement to support muscle relaxation, nerve function, and sleep quality. Ensure adequate sleep by maintaining a consistent bedtime, ideally in a dark, cool environment. During sleep, the body repairs the gut lining, balances hormones, clears inflammatory molecules, and restores mitochondrial function throughout the day. Include gut healing supplements if recommended, such as probiotics, omega-3 fatty acids, or vitamin D to support immunity, mitochondrial energy. And anti-inflammatory pathways. Collagen or gelatin can be consumed in smoothies or soups to promote skin elasticity and gut barrier integrity. Avoid snacking late at night and minimize exposure to processed foods, sugar, and industrial seed oils. Focus on steady meals rich in whole foods, protein, and healthy fats to maintain energy, support metabolism, and reduce cravings by following this daily routine. The gut begins repairing within hours, inflammation decreases steadily, mitochondria regain efficiency, and hormones start balancing. Energy stabilizes, skin clarity improves, and metabolism accelerates as the body moves from defensive mode into repair and regeneration. This simple, structured day supports the body's innate healing processes, aligns with Dr. Myhill's philosophy of restoring energy first, and reinforces the benefits gained from eliminating the 3 inflammatory foods.